see, my boyfriend and I, we've been living together and dating for 2 years. My boyfriend lacks a relationship with God. What's your advice, I guess? Your thoughts?
Can I be a super straight shooter with you? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Hey guys, welcome back to the Lila Rose Show. We are doing something different today, and I couldn't be more excited. We did a big call out or shout out in the last few weeks saying, hey, here's a phone number. Call us if you have relationship or life advice that you're looking for. And we took those voicemails. We got tons of voicemails from you guys, listened to all of them, and connected with some of you that we will now be talking to live on camera today about just questions that you're facing, things that you're wrestling with. Now, I'm giving my advice as basically like a big sister. As you guys know, I'm married almost 7 years now. We've got 3 kids, but it's not so much about my expertise as the advice and the mentorship and the expertise that I've received from really dozens of personal counselors, spiritual guides. The show we've interviewed now, and I think we're 200 episodes, amazing experts there, and really just providing the advice that's been given to me and the life experience that God has provided me to, I hope, serve you. Now, quick disclaimer, of course, as you guys know, I'm not a psychologist. I'm also not a doctor, but I am someone who cares deeply about this community that we're growing. And I want to see people have healthier, happier lives on your journey to heaven. So super excited to take calls today. And I cannot wait to talk to you guys. And as we're doing these calls, listen, I want to hear what you guys think. I think our community that we're growing at the show has some incredibly wise, passionate minds and faithful hearts. So leave your comments in the comment section about what we discuss with the callers, because you might have other pieces of advice. You might have a difference of opinion. You might have other ideas people should be thinking about. Leave your comments in the comment section. And you can always email me at lila@gtbmedia.com. I love hearing from you guys. And you can always call the hotline yourself at 409-234-4689. That's 409-234-4689. Hi, Shelby.
Well, hello.
How are you?
I'm actually very excited. I've been watching this show for a long time, so I feel very great at this opportunity to ask you my question.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for calling in, and I'm so happy to talk with you. Tell me what you're calling about today.
Well, you put in the questions, and I'm a new Christian. I've been a Christian now for about 2 years, so I'm still a baby at it and still learning a lot. There was a common thread, just for context. The ratio for single people in church is usually 10 to 1. There's usually more single women in church than men. And a question that I've kind of run into is dating in between faiths or dating someone who doesn't believe in God. And I just kind of wanted to get your advice or maybe your thoughts on that.
Of course. A couple quick questions for you. Are you currently dating someone who is a non-believer, or you're just asking, should I consider dating non-believers?
So I am dating right now, and both for those. So that's kind of where that question came in. I'm very lucky that the person that I am dating is very curious, and he did say that he'd be willing to go on that journey with me. So, but it's still, the question remains to be seen for me, what that means going forward. And not just for me, but there's also other friends of mine that have had this issue too. So I just kind of, like your podcast is, you're a mature Christian that has been through this for a long time. So I'm curious of like the wisdom that you would share with that.
Totally. Well, first of all, thank you again for calling in. And you're right. It is very tough out there. I've got several single friends who are in similar boat where they feel like it's hard to find men that share their values and their faith. And, of course, it sounds like you feel a calling to marriage, and this is a desire of your heart, which is so beautiful and so good. I do think God places these desires in our heart. So I'd say the first thing is, I would say kind of a bare minimum standard for anyone that you date is you want someone that has shared values. And even if that doesn't look like, they're exactly aligned theologically, right? They might not have the exact same faith, or maybe they're kind of exploring themselves. You want someone that has good virtues. And that's something you find out, obviously, getting to know them, obviously conversations. But I would say that's really the red line. You want someone of good virtue. They have integrity. They're honest. They're kind. They're hardworking. They have these qualities that that you're going to need to count on, right, if you end up getting married to them. So, but it sounds like you probably are already aligned on that. Like if you're okay talking about your current, potential dating relationship, do you see him having these natural virtues? He's a good man. He's got good character traits.
Actually, this is probably the best guy I've ever dated, to be honest.
Wow.
Like he's extremely kind and extremely generous and probably more patient than I deserve. So, and also very open to marriage, and we do align on a lot of those things.
Beautiful.
So I think my concern with my faith and stuff is just with church. Like I have a wonderful church. They're kind of more along the lines of like, they need to be going to church.
I
They
see.
need to
Yep.
have these specific faiths.
Does he go
which
to
is
church?
totally great. And I'm
Go ahead.
but they're they are very loving in regards to their spiritual health and everything else. I just didn't want to, like I said, it's more like a curious for me because I'm still learning and I'm still navigating. Just wanted, so it's just curious of how to go about forward.
Yes. Does he go to church with you?
Not yet. There's a lot of, because it's actually long distance right now, so kind of getting us in the same place at the same time is a little difficult for that, but he has expressed that he would be willing to go. He'd be willing to go to my Bible study group, meet people that go to my church, so
Beautiful.
he's willing, so.
And is he someone that, I mean, it sounds like you're getting to know him, but is he somebody that also would be willing to help raise the children, if you have children together, to raise them with faith, even if he himself isn't there yet, but he's willing to help you in raising the children with faith?
That is a conversation we've both had. That is actually a bottom line for me, like coming from a place where I kind of grew up in church and I had a really bad experience. And then now that I came back to faith, it's been a thing, and God is good. And that was my bottom line. I want to raise my children in church. Obviously, kids can have their own mind and decide, but like that's kind of how I would like to raise them in that regard. And he said he'd be willing to do that with me. So, and not just, making comments or like, oh, that's your mom's belief, or, oh, that's her thing, I don't care about it. I want it to be encouraging. And he said that that's the goal, and he would be willing to do that.
It sounds like you're having a lot of the key conversations. I mean, I would say the baseline is you want them to have natural virtues, a good person seeking, to live a good life, have good character, good virtue, and that they want the same things you want in terms of a family, raising the kids with faith. It sounds like that's a non-negotiable for you. I think that's a good thing. I think it should be a non-negotiable to raise the children in the faith. If you're a Christian, that's our calling, right? As parents, if we're going to be a parent, to raise them up in the faith. Marriage is a sacred covenant, right? And so I think that's also a key conversation that you need to have, if you haven't already, about what is the nature of marriage, because you also need alignment on no divorce, that you're in it, until death do you part. Have you guys talked about those things as well?
Yes, I know that there are slight variations. Like for me, like I have not been married yet. Not to give away everything, but like I am 32. I've never been married. I have had that option to me, and that is something for me. If I thought divorce was at all possible, I didn't do it. So for me, it's not a non-option. And I know we have talked about it, but it's kind of like that's kind of where the gray area is. The big D is kind of, if things get bad enough, is that something that you do, or how would you work through that? Conversations, and we're working through those. Meaning
you haven't yet discussed whether or not he would be open to divorce. It's not an automatic non-negotiable for him that he might consider a divorce, you're saying. And so you guys haven't talked about necessarily the permanent component of marriage where it's until death do us part. You're not fully aligned on that yet, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay. I think you're doing the right things in having these conversations and getting to know him. I don't think that my vantage point on this is it's obviously preferred if this person is already fully aligned theologically, they have the gift of faith. Because remember, faith is a gift that God gives us, right? We can receive it from God, but it's a gift ultimately from God. He doesn't seem to have that gift yet. And so it's good to, I think, pray for that for him. I would say I think it sounds like you're doing the right things and exploring, getting to know him, talking about these core things. As a Christian, though, there are certain non-negotiables about what marriage means and what it means to raise children. And even if the person is not a believer, maybe yet, right, they need to be fully aligned on that before you can consider marrying them, right? So I would definitely do that and have the guidance of a pastor or someone who understands this in talking through this with you. And it sounds like if it's a long distance relationship, the other thing I would say is make sure to really get to know him beyond long distance, right? Because that can also be, someone can be on their best behavior via text, via phone calls, via FaceTime. And you really get to know a person when you're looking at their community, looking at how they show up every day in their work life, in their everyday life, getting to know them week to week in person. I think you learn a lot more about somebody. So I would also say, that would be really important, especially since they're not a believer, to get to know them, in real life before seriously considering marrying them.
I would agree. And it's just like, and I would agree, it's just navigating, I think, through this as a Christian and kind of coming to, I think, something that I've personally struggled with. I'm sure all new Christians struggling the worldly versus the heavenly, and what do you sacrifice and what do you give, and like what are those things of the non-negotiables that you talk about. So I really appreciate it very much.
Of course. You say you're a baby Christian, but you know this, like God has a plan for you, and he doesn't give us a calling that he doesn't see to its fruition, right? So if you are called to marriage, he's going to bring you that man. And I'm not saying it definitely isn't this guy. It's possible that you have the space to get to know him in real life. Like we were describing, it's not just long distance. He's becomes this extremely supportive man of faith, and he's willing to basically live the Christian life, even if he hasn't been given the gift of faith yet. And you can pray for him to have that gift of faith. But I just want to encourage you that God has a plan for you, and his timing is perfect. I know it, I've got a bunch of girlfriends in their 30s who are like, oh, I'm waiting for this guy. I'm ready for him yesterday. But God's timing really is perfect. And just have a really abundance mindset. This would be one thing, because this guy sounds like he's very kind. You're getting to know him. He's, like you said, he's one of the most patient guys you've ever met. God is, God has the power to do anything, and he can move anyone, right? And so there are lots of people that God could bring into your life if he chooses, if that's God's will. And so just trust and, operate from a principle of trust that if this guy's not the right one for you, there will be someone that is the right one. And God will bring that man to you if you are called to marriage. And just have a lot of peace and trust in Jesus about that. Because I think sometimes we can get, it's scary, right? It can be, there can be anxiety of like, oh, well, what if there's nobody better than this guy? And, how am I going to find somebody? But remember that God's your father. He loves you, and he has a plan for you.
Yeah, that is something I'm slowly learning, and I'm it's struggling, but I appreciate that very much. And I definitely hold on to that, especially in the land of unknowns. So, but I do really appreciate it very much. Love your show. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. That's my question.
I will be praying for you, and continue to get good counsel. At the end of the day, that's going to be a real guide to you, is the people that know you and love you, and God's got you. God's got a plan. Thanks for calling, and thanks for talking with me.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and God bless.
If you have little ones, you always want the best for them, including the products that you use for them. That's why I love EveryLife.com, because they have clean, premium products for my little ones. EveryLife diapers are also free from harsh chemicals, no synthetic fragrances, dyes, lotions, latex, parabens, phthalates, or elemental chlorine. Just clean, safe protection for your baby. And if you or someone you love is longing for a baby and facing the pain of waiting or infertility, you are not alone. My husband Joe and I, along with many others, are praying for miracles for you this year. Whether you're a customer or not of EveryLife diapers, you can go to everylife.com/pray to submit your prayer request. A huge shout out to EveryLife for not only making an amazing product that I love to use, but for this campaign to help pray for those waiting for their own miracles. Shelby called, you guys just heard, very sweet girl. You can tell that she wants what's good. She wants to find a good man. And it's tough out there, like we were discussing. Like there it is. It is really hard. It can feel really lonely to find someone who's aligned with your values and your faith, and who's ready to get married, and you have this connection. Like that can be feel really daunting. But the reality is, God has all the power in the world. God's timing is perfect. And if you are meant to get married, they are out there for you. And so our job is to prepare, be faithful, and be open to God's grace, and not to, I think, people use the word settle, but not to think, oh, this is the one guy, the only guy I can be with because, he's so sweet, he's so loving. And so I have to make it work with this guy that I'm dating. Like, that's not the right mindset. Because if you choose someone that you're dating out of a fear that you're never going to meet somebody else, then you can make a bad decision. So, obviously encourage Shelby, hey, trust in God, have these non-negotiables, take some time to explore it with this guy. But if at the end of the day, he's not there yet, it might make sense to move on because you want to be open to what God has for you next. We'll be praying for you, Shelby. And people listening, let's pray together for Shelby and for her future husband. Hey, Lila.
Hi, Lila. How are you?
Good. I love it. We've got two Lilas here. It's so nice to meet you. Thanks for calling.
Of course. It's an honor.
Yeah, for me too. It's really for me too. So thank you. And I'd love to hear what's on your mind today.
Well, see, my boyfriend and I, we've been living together and dating for 2 years. And I wouldn't necessarily call us an interfaith relationship, but my boyfriend lacks a relationship with God in general, or just lacks a hunger for it in the way that I do. And so my question for you was just, what's your your advice, I guess, your thoughts?
Thank you, Lila. Listen, can I be a super straight shooter with you? Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I think the number one thing, you're a woman of God, right? Your faith is important to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. If you're living together, that is the first space where you can't properly discern this marriage, potential future marriage. You can't discern this relationship properly if you're living together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I know that's...
Does add a certain level of complication to things.
Yeah, because God's way is, in God's plan, we don't live together before marriage. We don't have sex before marriage. And that is for a reason, so that we have the clarity of mind and heart to be able to discern, is this the right person for me, right?
Right.
So, my first advice is you can't discern what you're trying to figure out right now. The way you're living your life right now, it makes it not possible for you to really figure this out because you guys are living together.
Yeah.
And I know that's tough.
Yeah.
How long have you two been together for?
2 years.
And how long living together?
1.5 years.
Yeah, that's a lot of time to be very close to someone like that.
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting about it, though, is that we haven't really had any issues. And I expressed with him, when we first met, how important my faith was to me and how I'm, was looking for someone to really commit to me. And it seems that just faith isn't off the table for him. It's just something that I don't know.
But he's not committed to you, right? I mean, he's living with you, but you're not married.
Well, yeah, but the only reason why we're not engaged is because in marriage is our intent. The only reason we're not engaged is to honor the wishes of his parents, which is that he doesn't propose to anyone until after he's done with school.
Got it. Do you and your faith, when you're living together with someone, obviously, a core part of our faith is sex belonging within marriage. How do you see that, and how does he see that?
Well, I see our partnership as one that's committed, and so we do have sex in our relationship. And yeah, I don't feel really convicted to stop that because of the nature of our commitment.
Meaning you're saying you feel like you're married even though you're not married yet, so that in your conscience you're telling yourself it's as if we're married.
Yes.
Well, the thing with marriage is, according to scripture, is that this is something that you've publicly pledged each other to before friends and family, right? And it sounds like his parents are not comfortable with that, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, they come from a little bit more of a secular worldview where they just think that he should focus on school and that should be his number one priority until he has his degree. and after that they couldn't care less.
Right. But I think if at the end of the day, you need a man who is going to do what's best for you as a married couple and your potential future children, right? And that he's not going to listen first to mom and dad if that's getting in the way of what's best for you as his potential wife, right? You want that man who's going to put you first and not have his parents be getting in the way of your relationship.
Right.
So, my just being a very straight shooter is this is not something I believe you can discern when you're living together and sleeping together, because you don't have that clarity of mind and you're right now living outside of God's plan. Even though you feel like you're married to him, even though he might feel that way too, you guys aren't married. And so I know this is tough to hear because you've moved in together, you're building this, you're very intertwined here, but until you're married, right, you're not married.
Right.
And it's again, God's grace, like he will give you the grace. God will give you the wisdom, but you got to go to him and say, God, do you approve of how I'm living right now?
Right.
And so, that's one thing I think we got to figure out. And then the other thing, the bigger question about, is this the guy for you to marry, right? Because you're not married. A big question to ask yourself, is this the man that can lead you and your children spiritually?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that? Every once in a while, I find a small business that I fall absolutely in love with. And that's why I'm so excited to share We Heart Nutrition with you guys. WeHeartNutrition.com is a vitamin and supplement company that provides the highest quality, research-backed ingredients, customized and optimized to help you be healthy. What I also love about We Heart Nutrition is that this is a family-owned company. And they're not just any family-owned company. This is a company that shares your values. And they donate a full 10% back of all of their revenue to pregnancy resource centers to help moms and babies in need. We Heart Nutrition customizes their vitamin packages specifically for your state in life. So whether you are premenopausal or postmenopausal, whether you're looking to conceive, help improve your fertility, whether you're pregnant, and this is a great prenatal vitamin, or you're postnatal. Plus, I'm very excited to share this with my husband. Now We Heart Nutrition has come out with their first line of men's vitamins. And if you order today at WeHeartNutrition.com, get your vitamins, you can get 20% off using the code Lila. And if you spend at least $50, you will get a free signature bamboo capsule vitamin box, which is very cute. I have one myself. So go to WeHeartNutrition.com today, use the code Lila at checkout to get 20% off your purchase. And when you spend $50, get that adorable free bamboo capsule box to store your vitamins in. That's WeHeartNutrition.com.
Well, I mean, even in the conversations we've had about, when we talk about parenting, we agree that we've really come to the conclusion that it's important for our children to see a loving partnership, even if our expressions of our faith might differ. And he would never disrespect or denigrate or denounce the name of Christ in front of me or our kids or anyone. He has a lot of respect for our religion, and he's interested in it. He's just not passionate about it the way that I am. But him and I believe that the strength of our relationship and the love that we share would speak volumes to our children, whether or not we display the same passion for Christ.
Do you think he can be a leader, though, in helping your children have faith and going to church and making that a part of your life, the truths of your faith? It's not just that he respects your faith, but do you think he would actively help encourage the children to be raised in faith?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's what we've at least spoken about.
So here's the thing. I think this guy sounds like he cares about you a lot. It sounds like he has a lot of, qualities that you obviously love and admire. To really figure this out, though, you need to have space where you're living God's plan. Because even though sometimes our ways, it's like, this is convenient for me, this is comfortable for me, we love each other, we're together, we feel like we're married. Like I said, you're not married. So there's two things to figure out here, right? There's the question of, should I marry him? Is he the guy to marry? Lifelong partner forever, until death do us part. And then the other question is, what do I do with the fact that we're living together and that's not God's plan to live together before marriage, right? Those are two questions. And I would say to answer that second question of should we marry, having a separation where you're living with chastity, you're not having sex, you're not doing what married people do because you're not married yet. So you can fully discern and decide, is this the one I'm going to marry? And then marry them, then you can have that intimacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Lila, is a good action plan moving forward?
Well, my boyfriend and I are gonna listen to this show when it's finally posted, and we're gonna talk about, our lease is up in June, so it's possible for us to have like separate bedrooms, but it's not really possible for us to stop living together because I can't afford to live in this city that I live in without a roommate or help.
Do you have, is there oftentimes there's houses or other apartments where you can share an apartment, share a house. Are there other girls related to your church or others that have a shared apartment or a house?
Yeah, we could look into that.
Because having your own place can be expensive, but I remember I rented a room, a room in a lady's house with a bunch of other rooms, and that keeps costs down.
Right.
Here's a question for you, Lila, and again, I'm so grateful to talk with you. Do you know some of the background about why sex can cloud judgment? Like when you're sexually intimate with someone, why that can cloud judgment about that person and the relationship?
Well, I mean, I've experienced it firsthand. I before I was saved, played the harlot, if you will. So I understand that it complicates things significantly, but if you'd like to enlighten me, I'm all ears.
Well, listen, God created us with our minds so that we can think, and our wills so that we can choose. So he wants you to have good judgment and clear judgment because he loves you. God's your father. He loves you so much. He loves us. And when we have sex with someone, it's designed, it floods our body with oxytocin. It's designed to bond us with that person, make us feel like this is my one and only, because that's what sex is for. It's for that one and only in a marriage till death do us part. And then it's also designed, as you know, of course, you can bring babies into the world, which is hugely intimate and unifying. Like this is our child now, right? So, for God's girls, you're God's girl, you're God's woman. And for his women, he has a plan, and it can be a really tough one, right? It's saying, don't have sex unless you're married. And it's not just don't have sex, it's pursue chastity, right? Which is loving this person as God wants you to love them, right? And before marriage, the way to love someone is to respect chastity and have that physical separation where you're not sexually involved with them because they're not your husband, right? At least not yet. And so I would just encourage, you can certainly listen to this show, but you already heard what I said, you could listen to it again later, but I can tell you're a very smart woman, you're a woman of conviction. And, I think, at the end of the day, God's way is it's there for a reason to save sex for marriage. So, I just want to, ask one more time, is there any other kind of action item or action plan that you can see coming out of this call?
I mean, my boyfriend and I are definitely going to have a good talk about everything that you and I talked about, and, we're in the perfect position right now to do what you're talking about with a little bit of separation because we're moving soon. So we'll talk about that.
Let me give you two more things, Lila, if I may. One of them is a quick story for you. So someone very close to me, like a little sister to me, she was living with her boyfriend. At one point she wanted to follow God, but she was, they felt like they loved each other. They were very connected with each other. They were moved in together, and she got convicted. At first she wasn't convicted. She thought, oh, we love each other, we want to get married. But she really thought about it, and she looked at what God says about marriage and sex, and she got convicted, and she did something really difficult. She moved out. They separated. They ended up getting married. They ended, he respected that decision in the end, and that showed his care for her, that he respected that being sexually pure before marriage was crucial. And of course, once you're married, you're still sexually pure, but you're now sexually intimate, right? The sex is where it belongs. But she moved out. And it was hard. It was not fun, but she felt peace because she knew she was living God's way. And God blessed that obedience and brought them together again when they got married. They had an amazing honeymoon. They got to move back in together. They have multiple children now, and God has really blessed that obedience. So I want to encourage you that God will bless your obedience even when it's difficult. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is go pray. Go before God and say, God, give me your wisdom and convict my heart to want to follow your law and be your disciple, be your follower. And do you have a good spiritual mentor or guide?
Not really.
I think that's going to be key for you because we're not meant to do this alone. Are you involved with a church?
I go to a Catholic church maybe twice a month.
Awesome. Well, I would go and have you met the priest there, or have you been involved with any of the groups there? Do you know anybody that goes to that church?
Yeah, I've got some friends there. They've got like a college age service at 8 o'clock p.m., which is really nice, for the
Amazing.
night owls.
Amazing. When you go, I want you to go there this Sunday, and I want you to talk to the leader. Is there a leader of it that you've met before, you've seen?
Yeah, there's like a priest for the youth group.
Amazing. Amazing. I want you to go and say, Father, can I talk to you? I need to talk to you. And I want you to tell him what you're dealing with. And I want you to go to confession, ask him to hear your confession, but ask him to help you with that confession, because confession is like balm for the soul. I go to confession every week. We need confession as Catholics, right? And I want you to ask him to help you and give you guidance, because these are big decisions you're making, right? This is your life. This is your future. So can you do that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
That's great advice. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that.
Amazing. God loves you, and he wants you back at Mass too on Sundays. That he wants you. He wants to be close. God is with you always, of course, but he wants us to come to him, and he's waiting for you in the Mass, in the Eucharist. And that priest, he set up that priest in your life to help you. And you're God's girl. He loves you. He wants you to get all the help you need. We good?
Yeah, I ultimately trust that the Lord has my troubles on his thoughts, and I just pray that he'll either bless our union and let us prosper and be fruitful together, or the Lord will rebuke our relationship and prune us from one another, however hard that might be. But I'm praying for you, Lila. I hope you pray for me. I really appreciate you taking my call.
Lila, I'm going to definitely pray for you, sister. And send me an email if you would, if you would like to, after you talk with this priest.
I'll send you an update.
Let me know, okay? Praying for you.
All right. Thank you.
God bless
Bye.
you. These things are super tough because a lot of people, including Christians, in our culture today, find themselves in this boat because everyone's doing it, right? It's the common knowledge of if you really love each other, you want to get married one day, but you can't for whatever reason, just move in together and then figure it out later. And so a lot of people do this, but it's not the plan that God has. It's not God's plan. Sex before marriage is outside of God's plan, and there's a reason for that. And there's the other reality, I didn't share it with Lila on the call, but, if Lila, you're listening now, according to the data, you're 7% more likely to get a divorce if you cohabitate before marriage. Divorce is actually more likely, not less, if you cohabitate before marriage. And you might ask, why is that? And it's because you're going in there with that mindset of, I think this is going to work out. I hope this works out. But obviously it's not there yet. And we're still living like we're married even when we're not. So you're setting up habits already of your thought, of even your intimacy, sexually, everything, where it's like, hey, I might end up piecing out on this, even though I'm feeling and I'm living as if we're married. So I would highly encourage, God's law is perfect. It really helps us. It's there to give us a life of ultimately the right order so we can live in peace. We can live in harmony with others. And so let's pray, obviously, for each other. A lot of people are, again, our culture is crazy. And I just want to encourage you, Lila. Thank you so much for calling. I'm really honored that you called and shared, what you're going through right now. I'm going to be praying for you and excited to hear how it goes with the priest next week.
Hey guys, we are now in Lent, the 40-day period leading up to Good Friday and Easter, filled with prayer, fasting, almsgiving, sacrifice, and surrender. I'm so excited about Hallow's Pray 40 Challenge to draw us closer to God this Lent. Hallow's Pray 40 Challenge is using the incredible spiritual masterpiece, The Way, to help us draw closer to Jesus Christ. The Way is a series of small challenges, encouragements, and exhortations that tell us how to deepen our relationship with God. What's very fun about the Pray 40 Challenge at Hallow is it's going to be narrated by some amazing folks like Mark Wahlberg and Chris Pratt. You'll also be hearing from Jonathan Rumi and Sister Marian James, who will lead you through meditations and prayers. This is already shaping up to be the best Lent ever, with thousands of people already joining the Pray 40 Challenge. So don't wait. You can sign up and join for free by going to hallow.com/Lila. You can get the first 3 months free, do your entire Lent free. Download the Hallow app today and jumpstart your Pray 40 Challenge now. Go to hallow.com/Lila.
Hi, Leanna.
Hi, Lila.
Hi, so nice to talk to you. Thank you for calling.
Yes, I am a really, really big fan.
Aw.
I've been watching you for like 2 years now.
Well, I'm so honored you called. I'm so excited to talk to you. So thank you. And thank you for listening to the show. That means a lot to me.
Yes. So should I ask my question?
I'd love that. I would love that. Thank you.
So my husband and I just joined the church. He was baptized as a baby, so the process was a bit easier for him. I am going to be baptized on Easter, but
Beautiful.
they taught us about natural family planning, and I've always been confused about how that works. Like, my question is, what is the difference between using birth control and using natural family planning? How can you be open to children while also trying to avoid pregnancy?
Yes. Thank you. Liana, first of all, I just got to say, I am so happy for you and your husband, for your marriage, your beautiful marriage, and for joining the church. What a beautiful, beautiful story you guys are living. So congratulations. And I'm so excited you're going to be baptized soon. Wow.
Thank you.
Amazing.
We also just had our second baby in January.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations. That is so wonderful. I'm so happy for you guys. So you got 2 kids.
Yes.
Look at you. How beautiful. Wow. Well, listen, this is a very good question. And I think a lot of people, especially when they're just kind of discovering, the faith, especially the Catholic Church's teachings on NFP, it can seem a little confusing. So totally understandable question. And I remember when I was becoming Catholic, learning about the church's teaching on contraception was really eye-opening for me. So great question. What is the difference between using NFP to avoid having children, it sounds like you're asking, versus birth control, right?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So the first thing is the biggest difference here is that NFP works within God's natural design for the human body, and contraception is an artificial method that interferes with God's natural design. So with NFP, you're using the design of your body, your fertility as a woman. You're only fertile a few days a month, right? And you're working within the design of your body without this artificial act that is interfering with sex, right? And so there's 2 core ways to think about what sex, God's design for sex, and the moral teaching. Like, why does the church teach this morally about birth control? Sex is designed to bring life into the world, as you know. You've had 2 babies, and it's designed for intimacy, right? To bond you 2 together. The primary purpose, though, is bringing that life into the world. So anything that we do to frustrate God's natural design, like we're having sex, we may be fertile, right? But we are using a condom or birth control pill to prevent that fertility from really, having the potential of bringing life into the world, right? Actually conceiving a baby, that goes against God's moral law, the natural law. But if you are not having sex, right? There's no sort of command that says you have to have sex every single time you're fertile. There's no sort of moral law that says you're married, you have to have sex every time you're fertile. Obviously, for many different reasons, a couple may not have sex when they're fertile or when they're not fertile. That's, the command is to love each other, right? And sometimes loving each other means avoiding sex because maybe someone is sick or, there's all kinds of other, dynamics, right? So sex is beautiful and good, but not having sex is part of God's plan. Obviously, Most of the time when you're married, you're not having sex, you're living your lives, it's, you're doing your stuff. But it's when you frustrate the sexual act by putting contraception on it, that goes against God's plan. So that's the really simplest way to think about this is birth control is artificial. It's frustrating God's natural design, but then just abstaining from sex is perfectly moral and natural. Couples do that all the time, or they choose to be intimate, right? And so is that making sense?
That makes a lot of sense. My sister just asked me what the difference was yesterday, so I'm so glad I have all of these points now.
Amazing. And one other thing to think about too is when you're practicing NFP, and that means you're aware of each other's bodies and understanding prudentially, you're making decisions based on a lot of conversation and prayer about your family. Like, hey, we'd love to have another child right now. We really want to maybe try for a child when we're fertile. Or maybe there's a grave reason, maybe a medical reason, right? There's a grave reason to say, hey, maybe we should wait a few months before trying for a baby or, having sex when we're fertile. That's the beauty of God's design, right? In that there's a part of our fertility cycle as women where we're not fertile. It's actually the majority of our fertility cycle is when we're not fertile. And so we can avoid having intercourse when we are fertile if we have a grave reason to delay having a child or space children. So God did that design for a reason so that couples can, make those decisions together, with prayer. And it is a way of, naturally planning your family. So it's amazing how our faith has all of these things, these beautiful truths that it provides for us so that we can have these beautiful Christian marriages.
Yes. Can I ask you one follow-up question?
Please do.
So, the doctors teach us women, like my gynecologist teach us women to wait at least 18 months before trying to start having another baby for health reasons. Do you agree with that? Because personally, I don't know if I should listen to the doctors that are the same ones pushing all this birth control on women when we know that it's not good for our bodies.
It is a very good question. Birth control is definitely not good for your body. And it is really sad how a lot of doctors, not all, immediately after you deliver a baby say, what's your birth control plan? I mean, it's really offensive, honestly. It's really messed up that happens in a lot of our medical system today. And there are pro-life doctors and, Catholic doctors who are really practicing the faith. They're not going to say that to you, right? But it can be hard to find them. So I would just stick to your guns and be like, listen, I don't use contraception. I'm Catholic. So that's not happening. But then, this thing about the 18 months, I think it really depends on the individual woman, right? Obviously, I'm not a doctor and I'm not, in your medical records, I wouldn't be able to, help with that because I'm not a doctor. But I can tell you for a fact, there's a lot of pro-life, Catholic doctors who would not give that advice depending on the woman, right? So I think the cultural trend of don't have a baby for at least 18 months, that's what some doctors are saying. But there's other doctors who say that's not necessarily the best thing for every woman. And they wouldn't recommend that. So I think it depends on the doctor you're going to talk to. You probably would get varying advice. And I would, at the end of the day, you follow your conscience as a Catholic, right? And, if you can, finding a Catholic doctor who's aligned with your beliefs would be ideal, so they can really help you and work with you. But I wouldn't, I would take that kind of advice, especially when they're giving it, like they give it to everybody blanket, the same advice. I would take it with a grain of salt.
Okay. All right. Well, that answers all my questions.
Thank you for calling, Liana, and so happy for you. I'm so happy. I'm going to be praying for you and, just excited for you and all the beautiful things God's doing in your family. And congratulations again on your baby. And again, so happy you called and I loved getting to talk to you.
Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Absolutely love this call. And thank you so much, Liana, for calling. Let's pray for her. It's super exciting that she's going to be baptized in just a few weeks. Amazing. And yeah, this is a common misunderstanding in culture today about contraception, NFP, birth control, all of these things, because what's baked in our culture today is yeah, of course you should go on contraception. I mean, teen girls are put on it for acne even. And if you have a child, a lot of medical doctors will just be like, yeah, get on a contraceptive right away. I mean, I remember I had my last baby and I was in the hospital and some nurse walked in and said, what's your birth control plan? And I was like, birth control, we don't do that here. I was like, no, my plan is no. That's my plan. So I think there's unfortunately a disrespect in our medical community today for the real nature of sex and this promotion of contraception. So very proud of Leanna, and the teaching of our faith and natural law, the natural order about sex is so beautiful. Our bodies as women have a natural rhythm where we're fertile a few days a month. And in a marriage, you work together as a couple to respect and understand each other's bodies and work within God's design there, where if you need to space or avoid children for a period of time, you get to know your body and your fertility cycle so that you can space and time when you're going to be intimate so that you're not intimate when you're fertile. It's all built in. Obviously, it takes a lot of communication and self-knowledge, but it's very, very beautiful. And ultimately, I think creates more intimacy, quite frankly, between the spouses. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to this inaugural call-in show of the Lila Rose Show. I absolutely loved getting to talk to some of you. Please call me anytime. Call us, leave a voicemail. I'd love to hear from you. And I want to hear what you guys think. Again, our show community has some really incredible people full of wisdom, passion, good conscience, people wanting to learn and grow themselves. I want to hear your thoughts. So leave them in the comments, and maybe some of our callers will check out those comments as well. And don't forget, you can always email me, lila@gtbmedia.com. That's lila@gtbmedia.com. I would love to hear from you. And don't forget to call. You can call at 409-234-4689. That's 409-234-4689. The way it works is you leave a voicemail. Keely, our amazing producer, will get in touch with you and schedule a possible call. And I look forward to talking to you on air over at The Lila Rose Show. And a huge thank you to EWTN, Eternal Word Television Network, which is the largest religious broadcaster in the world. You can get access to Lila Rose Show episodes 24 hours in advance at EWTN.com/on-demand. And a big thank you to EWTN and their incredible mission to bring souls to Jesus.